The silence stretched across the void like a blanket that had covered humanity for over a century. In the deep black between stars, the Earth Defense Coalition ship Dauntless moved quietly through space, its engines barely humming. 300 souls lived and worked inside its metal hull, following the same rule that had kept their species safe since first contact protocols were established in 2051. Listen, but never speak. David Rivers checked the navigation charts one more time. His weathered hands moved across the control panel with practiced ease. At 52, he had spent more years in space than on Earth, watching the galaxy from afar while his ship patrolled the outer edges of human territory. The Dauntless was just one of dozens of vessels keeping watch, making sure no hostile aliens found their way to Earth while humanity grew stronger in secret. The communication officer, a young woman named Beth Taylor, suddenly straightened in her chair. Her headset crackled with static, then cleared into something that made her eyes widen. "Captain," she called out, her voice cutting through the bridge's quiet atmosphere. "I'm picking up something unusual. It's not from any of our ships." Rivers moved to her station, his boots silent on the metal deck. Around the bridge, other crew members turned their attention toward the communication array. In over 30 years of deep space patrol, they had intercepted thousands of alien transmissions. Most were routine trade communications or navigation, beacons from the various species that inhabited this sector of the galaxy. None had ever been directed at them. "What kind of signal?" Rivers asked, leaning over Taylor's shoulder to look at the readouts. "It's a distress call, sir. But it's different. The AI is having trouble with the translation, but it keeps using words like help and dying and something about machines." Taylor's fingers danced over her controls, trying to clean up the transmission. "Captain, I think they're calling out to anyone who might be listening." The bridge fell silent except for the soft beeping of instruments. Rivers felt his chest tighten. In all his years of service, he had never heard an alien species broadcast a general distress call. Most civilizations in this region knew each other, had established diplomatic channels and mutual defense agreements. A general broadcast meant either the sender was completely isolated or their situation was so desperate that they were willing to trust complete strangers. "Put it through the main speakers," Rivers ordered. The bridge filled with a haunting melody that seemed to pulse with emotion. Even through the electronic translation, the desperation was clear. The voice that emerged spoke in broken mechanical phrases as the AI worked to convert alien concepts into human language. "Unknown listeners in the void. This is the Althari homeworld of Veltar. Our world burns. The metal ones came from dark space 3 cycles ago. They consume everything. Our ships break against their hulls like crystal on stone. Our people flee to the deep caves, but the metal ones dig deeper. We send this message to the stars, hoping anyone might hear. We do not know if other life exists beyond our system, but if you receive this, please know that we lived. Please know that we tried to be good. If you have the power to help, we beg you. If you do not, remember us." The message repeated twice, more, before fading into static. The bridge remained quiet for several heartbeats. Rivers could see the impact on his crew's faces. These were people who had spent their careers maintaining humanity's careful isolation, but they were also human, beings who had just heard another species crying out in their final moments. "Sir," said Lieutenant Commander Alex Wright, the ship's tactical officer, "we need to report this to Earth Command immediately." Rivers nodded slowly, but his mind was already racing. Earth Command would analyze the message, debate its implications, and eventually decide that humanity's safety required maintaining radio silence. The Althari would die while committees argued about protocols and risk assessments. By the time any decision was made, there would be nothing left to save. How far is their system? Rivers asked. Taylor consulted her star charts. Approximately 6 days at maximum warp, Captain. It's at the edge of our patrol range. What do we know about these metal ones they mentioned? Wright pulled up tactical databases on his screen. There have been reports from some of the trade networks about machine swarms, ships that seem to be artificial intelligence rather than crude vessels. They attack without warning, strip entire worlds for resources, then disappear. Most species consider them myths because survivors are rare. But if they're real, said Dr. Emma Lane, the ship's science officer, and if they're attacking the Althari, then we might be looking at a genocide in progress. Rivers walked to the main view screen, staring out at the stars. Somewhere among those distant lights, an entire civilization was dying while sending messages into the void, hoping against hope that someone might care enough to help. The weight of command had never felt heavier. Captain, Wright said quietly, Earth Command's standing orders are clear. We maintain radio silence under all circumstances. Any deviation requires prior authorization. I know the orders, Alex. Rivers continued staring at the stars. Beth, how long would it take to get authorization from Earth Command? At least 2 weeks for the message to reach Earth and a response to come back, sir. 2 weeks. Rivers closed his eyes and imagined an entire species counting down their final days while bureaucrats on Earth debated policy. He thought about his own daughter, safe in school on Mars, and wondered what kind of galaxy he wanted to leave for her generation. When he opened his eyes, his decision was made. Beth, open a channel. Broad-spectrum transmission toward the Althari. System. The young communications officer hesitated. Sir, that would break radio silence. Earth Command isn't here, Rivers said firmly. Open the channel. Taylor's hands moved over her controls, and a soft tone indicated the transmission was active. Rivers took a deep breath, knowing that his next words would change everything for humanity. This is Captain David Rivers of the Earth Defense Coalition vessel Dauntless. We have received your distress call, Althari of Veltar. You are not alone in the universe. We are coming to help. Hold on. He gestured to Taylor, who closed the channel. The bridge was absolutely silent as the implications sank in. After more than a century of hiding, humanity had just announced its presence to the galaxy. Set course for the Althari system, Rivers ordered. Maximum warp, and send a message to Earth Command. Tell them we're about to make first contact. News traveled faster than starships in the age of quantum communication. Within hours of Captain Rivers' transmission, the message had bounced through relay stations across 3 sectors of space. Species that had never heard of humans, suddenly, found themselves listening to a voice that spoke of rescue and hope. The galaxy held its breath. Admiral Kate Storm was reviewing supply manifests in her office on Luna Station when the emergency alert flashed across her screen. She had been expecting this moment for years, though not quite like this. The preliminary reports made her stomach clench. One of their deep patrol ships had broken the most sacred rule of human space policy: never let them know we exist. She activated her secure communication link to Earth Command. Within minutes, her screen filled with the faces of world leaders, military commanders, and intelligence officials. The argument was already in full swing. "This is a disaster," declared President Morrison of the North American Federation. "Over a century of careful isolation, thrown away by one rogue captain. Or the beginning of a new era," countered Director Liu of the Asian Coalition. "We've been hiding like children, afraid of our own shadows." Admiral Storm listened to the heated debate while reviewing the technical data streaming in from the Dauntless. The ship's quantum sensors were detecting massive energy signatures in the Althari system. Whatever was attacking them possessed technology that made most galactic civilizations look primitive. "Admirals, directors, presidents," Storm interrupted, her voice cutting through the argument. "While we debate, I'm seeing combat data that suggests these metal ones are unlike anything we've encountered before. If they destroy the Althari completely, we might be next." The room fell silent. Storm continued. "According to our deep space monitoring network, similar attacks have been reported in 17 different systems over the past 5 years. Each time, the attackers consume everything and leave nothing behind. This isn't random piracy. It's systematic harvesting." Dr. Alan Foster, head of xenological studies, appeared on another screen from his research facility on Europa. "Admiral Storm is correct. We've been tracking what we believed were natural disasters or civil wars. The pattern is clear now. These attacks follow a specific methodology: overwhelm defenses, extract all useful materials, move to the next target. Then we recall the Dauntless immediately," President Morrison said firmly. "We cannot risk..." "Sir, with respect, it's too late." "For that," Storm replied, "the transmission has been detected by at least 6 major galactic civilizations. Our radio signature has been analyzed and traced back to this system. They know where we are now." The weight of that statement settled over the room like a heavy blanket. For over a century, humanity had lived with the comfort of anonymity. Now, in the span of a few hours, they had become the newest players in a galactic community they barely understood. "What are our options?" asked Director Chen of the European Union. Storm pulled up a tactical display. "The Althari system is 6 days from the Dauntless at maximum warp. We have 18 ships within a 10-day radius that could support them. The question is whether we commit to this course of action or try to minimize our exposure." "What does Captain Rivers say about the situation?" Liu asked. Storm's expression darkened slightly. "The captain is maintaining radio silence except for tactical updates. However, his science team has been analyzing the distress signals. The Althari have been under attack for 3 weeks. Their population has dropped from 8 billion to approximately 2 billion. At current rates, complete extinction will occur within 10 days. The silence stretched uncomfortably long. These were leaders accustomed to making difficult decisions, but none had ever faced the choice between species preservation and moral action on such a scale. "We need to know more about these attackers," Foster said finally. "Admiral, what are you seeing from the sensor data?" Storm switched to a different display showing energy patterns and movement vectors. "The attacking force consists of approximately 3,000 vessels of varying sizes. They're not using any technology we recognize, but their tactics suggest advanced artificial intelligence. They adapt to defensive strategies in real time and show no interest in communication or negotiation." "Machines," whispered Director Petrov of the Russian Federation. "The Althari were right. They're fighting. An army of machines. That changes things," Liu said. "If these are rogue artificial intelligences, they pose a threat to all organic life. We might not have the luxury of choosing when to get involved." Storm nodded grimly. "My analysis suggests these machines will continue expanding until they encounter resistance they cannot overcome. If they finish with the Althari, they'll look for new targets. Our hiding won't matter if they decide to map this entire region of space." President Morrison leaned back in his chair, his face showing the strain of impossible choices. "Admiral Storm, in your professional opinion, what are our chances if we intervene?" "Unknown, sir. We have advantages the Althari don't possess. Our ships are designed for combat from the beginning. Our tactics emphasize flexibility and unpredictability. But we're talking about fighting an enemy that can rebuild losses in real time using captured materials. And if we don't intervene, the Althari die. The machines grow stronger, and we face a more powerful enemy later, possibly without allies. Director Foster appeared on the screen again, his face pale but determined. There's another factor to consider. We've just received communication attempts from several galactic civilizations. The Nexari Republic is offering to open diplomatic channels. The Raxan hegemony wants to establish military cooperation agreements. Even the Etherian Collective has sent what appears to be a greeting. Storm felt a chill run down her spine. The Etherian Collective rarely communicated with physical beings. If they were reaching out, the situation was more significant than anyone had realized. "What are they saying?" Morrison asked. "The messages are still being translated, but the general theme seems to be welcome mixed with caution. They're pleased to make contact but concerned about our intentions. Several species are asking if we plan to help the Althari. So our reputation is already being shaped by this decision," Chen observed. Storm stood up, her decision crystallizing. "Sir, I request permission to take a task force to the Althari system. This is first contact whether we want it or not. We can make that contact as cowards who hide while innocents die, or as a species willing to stand up for what's right." The debate that followed lasted 3 hours. Votes were taken, arguments made, and consequences weighed. In the end, the decision came down to a simple truth. Humanity could not live with itself if it gained a place in the galactic community by stepping over the bodies of an extinct species. "Admiral Storm," President Morrison said finally, "you are authorized to take whatever force you deem necessary to assist the Althari. Your mission objectives are to prevent their extinction and gather intelligence on these machine attackers. However, understand that you're not just representing Earth. You're introducing humanity to the galaxy. Make sure it's an introduction we can be proud of," Storm saluted crisply. "Understood, sir. We'll bring them home." Within 6 hours, the largest human fleet ever assembled was departing for another star system. 18 ships carrying humanity's best and brightest, rushing toward their first real test as a galactic civilization. Behind them, Earth's communication. Arrays came alive with responses to dozens of first contact messages. The age of silence was over. The age of consequence had begun. The Veltar system was dying. Admiral Storm watched through the main view screen as her fleet dropped out of warp at the edge of the battlefield, and the sight made her jaw clench. Where there should have been 5 planets orbiting a yellow star, only 3 remained. The outer worlds had been completely consumed, leaving behind swirling clouds of metallic debris that caught the sunlight like scattered diamonds. The machine fleet was vast beyond anything human intelligence had predicted. Thousands of angular ships moved with perfect coordination, their hulls reflecting no light. They ranged from small fighters the size of shuttles to massive factory vessels that stretched for kilometers. Between them, rivers of harvested material flowed in organized streams toward the largest ships, where the raw matter was being converted into more machines. "My God," whispered Commander Price from the science station. "They've already built twice as many ships as they arrived with." Storm studied the tactical display. The surviving Althari forces were clustered around their homeworld and 3 space stations, their crystalline ships forming desperate defensive rings. Even from this distance, she could see gaps in their formations where vessels had been destroyed. The elegance of their technology was matched only by its complete inadequacy against this mechanical swarm. Incoming transmission from the planet. "Surface," reported Lieutenant Hayes at Communications. "Put it through." The view screen shifted to show a being unlike anything in human experience. The Althari ambassador was tall and graceful, with luminescent skin that seemed to glow from within. When it spoke, the words came as harmonic tones, that the translation system converted into heavily accented English. Human vessels. We are Tal. Of the Althari Council. Your arrival brings hope we had not dared to feel. But you must understand, these machines learn from every engagement. They have adapted to every tactic we have attempted. We fear we are leading you to share our fate. Storm stepped forward, her uniform crisp, despite the long journey. Ambassador Tal, I am Admiral Kate Storm of the Earth Defense Coalition. We received your distress call and came as quickly as possible. We're here to help, but we need to understand what we're fighting. The Althari's large eyes showed both gratitude and despair. They arrived 26 days ago. At first, we thought they were seeking communication. Our people are philosophers and artists. We have known war only in historical records. When they began consuming our outer worlds, we tried to negotiate. They do not respond to any communication. They simply take everything and make more of themselves. Have you detected any central command ship? Any pattern to their movements? They move as one mind, but we detect no single source. When we destroy one vessel, others immediately adapt their tactics. It is as if each ship contains the intelligence of the entire fleet. Storm nodded grimly. She had feared as much from the tactical reports. Ambassador, we're going to need close coordination with your remaining forces. Our ships use different technologies, different tactics. Together, we might have advantages neither of us possess alone. The relief on Tal's face was visible even across species lines. We will share everything we have learned. But, Admiral, you should know that we are not warriors. Our ships were designed for exploration and beauty, not combat. Then it's fortunate that ours were designed for exactly that, Storm replied with more confidence than she felt. The first joint engagement began within an hour. Captain Rivers had identified a section of the machine fleet that was harvesting one of the space stations. The Althari provided detailed scans of the enemy ships, while human forces moved into attack positions. Remember, Storm broadcast to her fleet, these machines adapt quickly. Don't use the same tactic twice. Keep them guessing. The Dauntless led the charge, its weapons systems lighting up the void. Human ships moved with an aggressive unpredictability that seemed to confuse the machine forces initially. Instead of the careful, coordinated attacks they had learned to counter from the Althari, the humans struck from unexpected angles and withdrew before the enemy could respond effectively. Commander Lisa Webb, piloting the fighter Falcon, dove through the machine formation with reckless precision. "These things are trying to predict my movements," she reported over the comm. "Every time I bank left, they're already firing where they think I'll be next." "Then don't be where they think," Rivers replied. "All fighters, random evasion patterns, don't follow any logical sequence." The tactic worked initially. Human ships saved dozens of Althari civilians from the doomed station before the machines could adapt. But adapt they did. Within 20 minutes, the enemy had analyzed human flight patterns and began predicting even random movements. "They're learning too fast," reported Captain Torres from the heavy cruiser Guardian. "My weapons aren't penetrating their hulls anymore. They've modified their armor somehow." Dr. Emma Lane's voice crackled over the comm from the Dauntless. "Admiral, I'm detecting something unusual. When we damage their ships, they're not just repairing the damage, they're upgrading the damaged sections with new materials they've harvested." Storm felt ice in her veins. "Are you saying they're using our attacks to make themselves stronger?" "Not stronger, but more resistant to our specific weapons. Each hit teaches them how to better defend against that type of damage." The situation was deteriorating rapidly. Human forces had saved one station, but lost 3 ships in the process. The machines were now incorporating captured human technology into their designs, creating hybrid vessels that combined the worst aspects of both technologies. All ships, withdraw to rally point Beta, Storm ordered. We need to reassess. As the human fleet regrouped with the surviving Althari forces, Storm found herself facing a tactical nightmare. The enemy was larger, more numerous, and now adapting to human combat techniques in real time. Traditional military doctrine suggested retreat, but retreat meant the extinction of the Althari and eventually a more powerful enemy for humanity to face later. Admiral, Tal's voice came through the communication system. We have been discussing your tactics with our engineers. Your unpredictability is impressive, but we believe there might be another approach. I'm listening. Our people have studied harmonic frequencies for millennia. We have detected patterns in the machine communications. They use quantum entanglement for instantaneous coordination across their fleet. If we could disrupt that coordination, Dr. Lane's voice cut in excitedly. Admiral, the ambassador might be on to something. If these machines rely on quantum communication for their hive mind behavior, a properly tuned harmonic frequency could create interference. How long would it take to develop such a weapon? Working with the Althari? Maybe 8 hours if we combine their frequency analysis with our quantum disruption technology. Storm looked at the tactical display. The machines had resumed their systematic harvesting of the remaining planets. At their current rate, the Althari homeworld would be under direct assault within 12 hours. Do it, she ordered. All ships will conduct hit-and-run attacks to buy us time. Keep them busy while we prepare our surprise. The next 8 hours were the longest of Storm's career. Human and Althari ships worked together in desperate holding actions, trading space for time while scientists from both species worked frantically to develop a weapon that existed only in theory. When the harmonic disruptor was finally ready, it required a delivery system that could penetrate deep into the machine fleet. The weapon had to be placed within the center of their formation to achieve maximum effect. It's a suicide mission, Rivers said bluntly during the final briefing. Whoever takes this device into their fleet won't be coming back. Storm nodded. She had already made her decision. The Dauntless will make the run. You've earned the right to finish what you started, Captain. With respect, Admiral, this should be my call. It is, David. I'm asking, not ordering. Rivers smiled, for the first time in days. Then we'd be honored to deliver their invitation to leave our galaxy. As the Dauntless began its final approach toward the machine fleet, Storm realized that humanity's first act as a galactic civilization would be one of sacrifice. Whether they succeeded or failed, the galaxy would remember that humans chose to fight rather than hide. The explosion lit up half the Veltar system like a second sun. When the brilliant flash faded, the machine fleet hung motionless in space, their perfect coordination shattered. One by one, the artificial vessels began drifting aimlessly as their quantum communication network collapsed under the harmonic disruption. The Dauntless was gone, vaporized in the blast that had saved 2 civilizations. 3 days after the victory, Admiral Storm stood in the crystal gardens of the Althari capital city, watching human and alien engineers work side by side to repair the damage. The beauty of this place was beyond human imagination. Crystalline spires reached toward the sky like frozen music, and the very air seemed to shimmer with reflected light from the elaborate geometric patterns that covered every surface. Your Captain Rivers will be remembered in our songs until the stars grow cold, Ambassador Tal said, approaching with that graceful gliding motion that characterized the Althari. He chose to give his life for people he had never met, of a species he had just discovered. This is not common behavior in the galaxy. Storm nodded, her throat tight with emotion. David always said that being human meant standing up for those who couldn't stand up for themselves. I think he would be pleased to know his sacrifice mattered. It mattered more than you know, Admiral. The story of humanity's intervention is spreading across the galactic communication networks. Other species are taking notice. As if summoned by their conversation, Lieutenant Hayes materialized beside them with urgent news. Admiral, we're receiving multiple first contact requests. The Nexari Republic wants to establish formal diplomatic relations. The Raxan hegemony is offering military cooperation agreements. And there's something else. We've got a message from the Etherian Collective. Storm raised an eyebrow. Even she knew that the Etherian Collective rarely communicated with physical beings. They were ancient energy beings who had transcended their original forms millions of years ago and generally considered material concerns beneath their notice. What do they want? They want to meet with you personally, ma'am. They're sending a representative to this system. Within hours, representatives from half a dozen galactic civilizations had arrived in the Veltar system. The Nexari came in elegant ships that seemed to be grown rather than built, their hulls covered in organic curves and bioluminescent patches. The Raxan delegation arrived in massive warships that looked like they had been designed specifically to intimidate potential enemies. But it was the arrival of the Etherian representative that truly amazed everyone present. The being that materialized on the bridge of Storm's flagship was composed entirely of shifting light patterns, constantly changing color and intensity as it communicated. Admiral Storm of Humanity, the entity spoke directly into her mind. We have observed your species for many centuries. We have watched you grow from primitive warriors into a civilization capable of sacrifice for strangers. Today, you have proven something we were not certain existed in younger species. And what is that? Storm asked aloud, aware that everyone on the bridge was listening intently. The wisdom to use power for protection rather than conquest, the courage to risk everything for principles rather than profit. These qualities are rare in the galaxy. They are precious. The Etherian's light patterns shifted to what Storm somehow recognized as pleased approval. We wish to offer humanity membership in the Galactic Coordination Council. This is unprecedented. No species has ever been invited to join within their first year of open contact. What would membership involve? Responsibility, Admiral. The Council manages crises that threaten multiple species. Members are expected to contribute resources and personnel to protect others when necessary. It is not an honor to be accepted lightly. Storm felt the weight of decision settling on her shoulders once again. I would need to consult with my government. Of course. But understand that your actions here have created expectations. The galaxy has seen what humanity is capable of. They will either see you as protectors or as a potential threat. There is rarely a middle ground. Over the next several days, Storm found herself at the center of the most complex diplomatic situation in human history. The Nexari offered advanced medical technology and star charts showing safe trade routes throughout their region of space. The Raxan proposed joint military exercises and shared intelligence about other potential threats. Several smaller species sent delegations hoping that humanity might help with problems they had been unable to solve alone. But not all the attention was positive. Intelligence reports from Earth indicated that the Dominion of Keth, a militaristic empire that controlled several dozen star systems, was mobilizing its forces. Their economy had grown wealthy by selling protection to species threatened by the machine attacks. Humanity's intervention had cost them significant profits and demonstrated that their military might not be as impressive as they claimed. They're calling us dangerous upstarts and naive idealists, reported Commander Price during a secure briefing. Their propaganda networks are spreading stories that we're planning to conquer the entire sector. Are we? Storm asked dryly. Not according to our orders, ma'am. But the Keth seem convinced that any species capable of defeating the machines must have expansion plans. The political situation on Earth was equally complex. News of humanity's galactic debut had created massive demonstrations both supporting and opposing increased alien contact. Some wanted to retreat back into isolation, arguing that the galaxy was too dangerous for continued involvement. Others demanded immediate colonization efforts and aggressive expansion of human influence. President Morrison appeared on Storm's secure communication screen, his face showing the strain of impossible decisions. "Admiral, we're getting pressure from every direction. Half the world wants you to come home immediately. The other half wants you to accept every alliance offer we've received." "What are your orders, sir?" "That's the problem. We're in uncharted territory. The Constitution doesn't have provisions for joining galactic governments or fighting wars to save alien species. Congress is deadlocked. The military is split between those who think we're overextended and those who think this is our chance to secure humanity's future." Storm understood the dilemma. Humanity had spent over a century preparing for the possibility of hostile first contact, but no one had planned for the scenario where they would be invited to join the galactic community as protectors rather than protected. "Sir." The Etherian representative indicated that neutrality isn't really an option. The galaxy has seen what we're capable of. We either accept responsibility or they start viewing us as a potential threat. And if we accept responsibility, what happens when the next crisis occurs? Do we send human ships and crew to die for species we've never heard of? Maybe. But sir, if we don't, what happens when those crises eventually reach Earth? The machine fleet that attacked the Althari was just one of many. According to the intelligence we've gathered, similar attacks have occurred throughout this region of space. If we don't help stop them, we might face something much worse later. The debate continued for hours across multiple time zones and government levels. In the end, the decision came down to a simple recognition. Humanity had already chosen its path when Captain Rivers answered the Althari distress call. Everything else was just accepting the consequences of that choice. "Admiral Storm," Morrison said finally, "you are authorized to accept provisional membership in the Galactic Coordination Council. We'll work out the formal treaties later. For now, use your best judgment about how to represent humanity's interests." Storm felt both relief and apprehension. "Understood, sir. We'll try to make you proud." As she prepared for her first council meeting, Storm looked out at the joint human-Althari fleet patrolling the system. Human ships moved with their characteristic aggressive efficiency, while Althari vessels provided sensor coverage with their sophisticated detection arrays. It was a partnership that neither species could have imagined a month earlier. The age of human isolation was truly over. Whether the age of human leadership was beginning remained to be seen. 2 years had passed since the Battle of Veltar, and the galaxy was a different place. Admiral Storm walked through the corridors of Nexus Station, the massive orbital facility that served as headquarters for the Galactic Coordination Council. Through the transparent aluminum windows, she could see ships from dozens of species coming and going, their diverse designs creating a spectacular light show against the star field. The human delegation had grown from a single admiral to a full diplomatic and military staff. Commander Hayes, promoted after exemplary service during the crisis, approached with the daily intelligence briefing. Her expression was troubled. "Admiral, we've got reports of 3 more machine incursions in the past week. The attacks are getting more sophisticated. They're not just harvesting resources anymore. They're studying the civilizations they attack before destroying them." Storm reviewed the tactical reports with practiced efficiency. The machine entities, now classified as harvesters by Council intelligence, had evolved since their defeat at Veltar. Instead of mindless consumption, they were displaying strategic planning and what appeared to be long-term objectives. "Any pattern to the targets?" "Yes, ma'am. They're hitting species that have had recent contact with Council forces. It's like they're specifically targeting civilizations that might join our alliance." The implications were disturbing. Storm had hoped that destroying the Veltar fleet would be the end of the Harvester threat, but instead it seemed to have provoked them into more intelligent behavior. The machines were learning not just tactics, but strategy. Status of our response teams? The Joint Human-Althari Rapid Response Fleet is ready for deployment. The Nexari have contributed medical support vessels, and the Raxan have provided heavy assault ships. We can have a task force at any threatened system within 48 hours. Storm nodded with satisfaction. The partnerships forged in the aftermath of Veltar had grown into something unprecedented in galactic history. Species that had maintained polite but distant relations for centuries were now working together with genuine cooperation. Admiral, Hayes continued, there's something else. We've received a formal challenge from the Dominion of Keth. They're claiming that human expansion violates their territorial agreements with neighboring species. Expansion? We have 3 colonies and 2 research stations. Hardly an empire. It's not about territory, ma'am. It's about influence. Every species that joins the Council reduces their power base. They're losing clients who used to pay for their protection services. The political situation had become increasingly complex as humanity's reputation spread. The Council's policy of mutual defense and shared resources was undermining the protection rackets that several militaristic species had used to control their regions of space. The Dominion of Keth was just the largest and most aggressive of the groups that saw human idealism as a threat to their profits. What kind of challenge? Formal combat. Single ship engagement. Winner takes control of disputed territories, including our colony at New Veltar. Storm felt anger rise in her chest. New Veltar was the joint human-Althari settlement that had been established on one of the planets that survived the Harvester attack. It was home to 15,000 humans and 30,000 Althari, representing the first truly integrated community in galactic history. Who issued the challenge? War Commander Thex of the Keth Fourth Fleet. He's their most experienced captain, and his ship is one of their newest designs. Intelligence suggests they've been specifically preparing for combat with human vessels. Storm considered the options. Council law allowed for formal challenges to resolve territorial disputes, but it was an archaic system that most civilized species had abandoned centuries ago. The fact that the Keth were invoking it suggested they were confident of victory. What does the Council recommend? The Etherian representative advised accepting. He believes that demonstrating human courage in single combat will strengthen our position with warrior cultures throughout the galaxy. The Nexari are opposed, arguing that the challenge legitimizes violence as a solution to political disputes. Storm made her decision quickly. Inform War Commander Thex that we accept his challenge. I'll pilot the engagement personally. Admiral, with respect, shouldn't we send one of our combat specialists? No. This isn't just about military capability. It's about showing the galaxy that humans stand behind their commitments personally. If we're asking other species to trust us with their safety, we need to demonstrate that we're willing to risk everything ourselves. The news of the accepted challenge spread through the galactic communication networks within hours. Species throughout. The region began making preparations to witness what many believed would determine the future balance of power. The location was set for the neutral zone between Keth and Council territory, with observers from every major civilization in attendance. Captain Lisa Webb, now commanding the newest human destroyer Defiant, tried one last time to convince Storm to reconsider. Admiral, the Defiant is faster and more maneuverable than your flagship. Let me take this fight. Lisa, I appreciate the offer, but this has to be me. The Keth challenged human leadership directly. If I hide behind my subordinates, we lose credibility regardless of who wins. The day of the challenge dawned clear in the neutral zone. Storm's flagship resolution. moved into position opposite the Keth warship Dominator, a massive vessel bristling with weapons and armor. The size difference was intimidating. The Keth ship was nearly twice as large and appeared to be built for exactly this kind of single combat. Observers from dozens of species watched from a safe distance as the two vessels faced each other across empty space. Storm studied her opponent through the tactical display. War Commander Thex had a reputation for brutal efficiency and had never lost a formal challenge. "This is War Commander Thex of the Keth Dominion," came the transmission. "Human Admiral, you have chosen to stand against the natural order of this galaxy. The strong rule, the weak serve. Your idealistic philosophy ends here." Storm activated her response channel. "War Commander, I respectfully disagree. Strength isn't about dominating others. It's about protecting those who need protection. Today, we'll see which philosophy the galaxy prefers." The engagement began with a thunderous exchange of weapons fire. The Dominator attacked with overwhelming force, trying to end the fight quickly through superior firepower. Storm ordered evasive maneuvers, using the Resolution's superior speed to avoid the worst of the assault while looking for weaknesses in the enemy's defense. The battle raged for over an hour. Both ships took significant damage, but the Keth vessel's heavier armor allowed it to absorb punishment that would have crippled smaller ships. Storm realized that conventional tactics wouldn't be enough. She needed to do something unexpected. "All power to engines," she ordered. "Emergency acceleration. Direct course for the Dominator." "Admiral, that's a collision course." "I know. Trust me." The Resolution shot forward like an arrow, closing the distance to the enemy ship at dangerous speed. The Keth crew, assuming the humans were attempting a suicide ramming attack, concentrated all their fire on the approaching vessel. At the last possible second, Storm ordered full reverse thrust and launched every torpedo the ship carried at point-blank range. The explosion tore through the Dominator's forward sections, crippling its main weapons and destroying its navigation systems. The massive ship listed helplessly as emergency systems tried to contain the damage. "War Commander Thex, do you yield?" Storm asked over the communication channel. The response came after a long pause. "I yield, Admiral Storm. You fight with honor." The victory sent shockwaves through the galactic community. Species that had been intimidated by Keth aggression for decades suddenly realized that the Dominion was not invincible. Within weeks, 12 different civilizations had applied for council membership, seeking the protection and mutual cooperation that humanity had demonstrated. But the most significant change came from an unexpected source. 3 months after the challenge, Ambassador Tal approached Storm with news that would reshape everything they thought they knew about the galaxy. "Admiral, our deep space sensors have detected something extraordinary. The Harvester attacks have stopped completely. Every machine fleet in this region of space has gone silent. That's good news, isn't it?" "Perhaps, but our analysis suggests they haven't been destroyed. They've withdrawn to a location beyond our sensor range. We believe they are regrouping for something much larger." Storm felt a chill run down her spine. "How much larger?" "Based on the energy signatures we detected before they disappeared, we estimate they have constructed a fleet of over 1 million vessels. Admiral, we believe they are preparing for a coordinated assault on every populated system in this sector of the galaxy." The revelation changed everything. The individual crises they had been responding to were just probing attacks. The real war was still coming, and when it arrived, every species in the galaxy would need to stand together or face extinction. 6 months later, Storm stood in the same crystal gardens where she had first met Ambassador Tal, but now the scene was different. Human and Althari children played together among the geometric patterns, while overhead, the largest fleet in galactic history prepared for the greatest test any of them had ever faced. The Galactic Defense Alliance now included 47 species, united under principles that had seemed impossible just 3 years earlier. Ships that had been designed to fight each other now flew in coordinated formations. Scientists who had guarded their secrets for millennia now shared research freely. "Do you think we're ready?" Tal asked, joining her observation of the children. Storm watched a human girl explain the rules of soccer to a group of young Althari, their translator devices making the conversation possible. "I think we're as ready as we can be. More importantly, I think we finally understand what we're fighting for." "And what is that?" Storm smiled as the children's laughter echoed through the crystal gardens. "The right to exist as we choose. The right to help each other. The right to believe that the galaxy can be better than it was." In the distance, warning signals began to sound. The long-range sensors had detected the approach of the Harvester Armada. The final battle for the galaxy was about to begin, but humanity and its allies would face it together. The age of human isolation was a distant memory. The age of galactic unity was about to be tested in the crucible of war. Whether it would survive remained to be seen. But one thing was certain. The galaxy would never again have to wonder if anyone would answer a call for help. Humanity had broken its silence, and in doing so had taught the galaxy to speak with one voice.